Next question, Jeremy Wilson. What's up, buddy? Happy Thanksgiving. Is there a specific interaction with someone over the years as a business owner or individual has positively or negatively influenced the way you do business and your direction? As always, great info and entertaining to listen. And a thank you for literally sending out my latest order the next business day. So I don't get credit for that. We had what you ordered, and my guys are on point, and my shipping girl's on point, and Amanda had your shit printed out, and that all went as it's
Smooth.
supposed. That's how we would like all of it to go, but it doesn't always. Who do you think would influence me business-wise?
I have no.
I'd say Rob.
Now, yes.
Rob Bailey.
Yes, absolutely. Now, Rob Bailey.
Ed Milet.
That's what I was going to say. And Bradley.
Bradley. Wes Watson.
Yep.
And that's what I was talking about this morning, guys.
Andrew Tate.
Andrew Tate. I don't know Tate. I don't know anybody that knows Tate, but all these other guys, I know I'm one step removed from them. Like I know, like Rob just had an event. All those dudes came and spoke. Ed Milet's $100,000 to have him show up. Ed flies his own Falcon jet. Like Ed has his own jet. He shows up. He doesn't charge these guys. When you're fucking around with the right people, you maneuver in a different way. It's completely different. And Rob's having a private event in Las Vegas. There's 2 of them coming up. And then he's doing Vertical Union in Salt Lake City. And they just had their first Vertical Union. Well, we were supposed to be there, but we said we were going, and then they announced the date, and we were already scheduled for our event for Self-Reliance Festival. So we had all those people coming. So that's what I'm talking about. When you get around those people, it's a whole different world out there that you don't realize exists. And when you're talking, you're standing. It's just like when we went to SHOT Show the first time. We were friends with all the Surefire Institute guys. So the story with Surefire Institute, if you don't remember, Ken Good, Mike Sneed, Dave Maynard, a bunch of these dudes, ex-team guys. John Matthews, who owns Surefire, still does as far as I know, retired. And the company wasn't really running like he wanted it to run. So he stepped back in, and John wanted machine guns. He wanted belt-fed machine guns. And that's a tough thing in California. Well, the workaround for that is to have a law enforcement training unit, and then he could get his suppressors and his machine guns, and he literally bought all these That's why they started Surefire Institute. I don't know that anybody will tell you that, but we became friends with a lot of guys that worked for Surefire. They were in my shop a lot. We hung out a lot. And when we first invaded Iraq, there was a lot of shit going on in Afghanistan also. The SF units had been over there. They were doing a ton of cave stuff. And the first guys had just rotated and come back home. And we were at SHOT Show, and they rented out the Palms Hotel. A lot of stuff happens at the Palms. It's where they used to have the MTV TV show or whatever. It's got the swimming pool that is under the glass in the living room. Yeah. So we're up there. We walk in, and it's like lobster and shrimp seafood towers that are like 6 feet tall. It's fucking crazy. Well, we get invited to this party. We go in, and they introduce me to I met a bunch of these guys who had just come back. And there's some fucking general in there. And he's like, this is the guy you were telling me makes the sleeves? And Barry Duke was like, yeah, yes, sir, this is the guy that makes all of our 3-point slings. And he's like, okay, I'll take 50,000 of them. I'm like, roger that, sir. And I'm like, I don't know who he is. I've been introduced to this dude. I'm like, he's drunk. When he walks away, Mike's like, how are we going to build 50,000? I'm like, we're not going to build 50,000 of these. He's not going to remember this shit. I didn't give him a phone number. We didn't say shit. Monday morning, I come in, and Lene's like, and my fax printer's going, it's thermal paper. Yeah. And we've got like 20 feet of fucking paper curled up. She's like, 50,000 slings, United States Army. I'm like, I guess we're going to build 50,000 slings. And Mike's like, how the fuck are we going to build 50,000 slings?
One sling at a time.
I'm like, one sling at a time. And we did.
I was going to say something about that with who influences you and stuff like that. No matter who it is, pick somebody and start watching them. Their stories are very similar, and it's never one big thing. It's a bunch of little things, and they just keep going.
And what you'll find too when you start watching these guys, right? They're influenced by somebody.
Exactly.
And they have a mentor. Mm-hmm. And those guys, they also have a mentor, right? And when you get high enough up the line, a lot of these guys are old, they're retired, they've died. But it all comes from somewhere. Mm-hmm. Like I latch on to things. Like James would say, don't go stupid places with stupid people and do stupid things. And I said that a lot. Mm-hmm. And then there was a dude that came here and took a class, and I always thought the guy was kind of a turd. And then he went out and he started his own school, and he sponsored the Survival Podcast. He was on there, and he said that. And I was really angry with this dude because he came here, and he's always like, don't go stupid places and do stupid things, And I'm like, that motherfucker stole that from James. And then I'm sitting in a John Farnham class, and John Farnham says it. Yeah. And I'm like, son of a bitch. Of course that's where James got it from, because James, like, that was probably the most influential person in James's life for his training curriculum was John Farnham. Like, I don't know if people know how close they were. Like, John Farnham would always be here, and he would stay at James's house. He didn't sleep in the team room. He slept upstairs. Like, they were very, very close friends. Mm-hmm. And I'm really surprised that John has outlasted James. Every time he's in town for a class, we're like, man, you really should take this class. Like, you don't know how much time he has left.
That happened to me last year. I didn't do it, but I thought I need to take a class with him.
Yeah.
Because you never know.
James is when John's in town, James is like, hey, we're going to the Mexican. It's always fucking Mexican, of course. He's like, John's coming to dinner. You want to come? I'm like, I absolutely want to come. Mm-hmm. I just want to sit and listen. I don't care what he's fucking talking about. If John's mouth is running, I want to hear the words coming out. And that's how those people are. And that's how everything is, right? Whatever you think somebody made up or created, they might not even know where they got it from. It all came from somebody else's. You could invent some new thing. There's not anything new. And if there's a need for it and you create some new thing, some dude on the other side of the world has the same need and probably created the exact same thing, right?
Well, it's like the game of telephone.
Yes.
Something happens, and by the time somebody else gets it could be something shittier,
Yes.
But if you're telling the right people, it gets better.
The story is going to change by the third retelling.
Yeah.
That's always what it is. And when you have 12, there's not even, most of the time, there's not even a single word from the original phrase left.
Exactly. So like James got it from John and all that stuff, but it changes every time somebody who can use that information properly gets it.
Yes.
And it gets better and better.
Yeah. As far as like my industry, there's a dude named Mike Desmuke who I say he taught me to sew. He didn't really teach me to sew. He taught me kind of how to run a sewing machine. It ran out of thread, and then I couldn't put thread in it. So he came back a week later, showed me how to reload the bobbin, which I kind of did. He would bring me little rolls. Like the dirty secret is we don't use the inside part of the webbing because it's tight and you can't run it off of a cutter. We use big rolls because they're heavy. We put them on a stand and we put them through some bars that put tension and drag on it. And then the cutter cuts. But when you get down to that roll, a lot of times we take our rolls when we get them and we pull on them and tighten them up. We take all the slack out of them. Well, if they weren't rolled really good at the beginning, which they never are, it creases them and it makes them kind of weird. So no factory uses that shit. When John Willis goes to cut stuff, I always grab the little rolls because I know my guys aren't going to use it, and time is money. But if I'm cutting individual stuff by hand or on a manual hot cutter, I always use those little rolls. We save all that shit. That's what I build. If you got something I made, that's what it came out of, was the end cuts. Just because I'm the guy writing the check. Like, I'm still stuck in that mode. Like, there's $100,000 sitting here. Yeah. Well, there is. But we cleaned up the whole work bay twice, and we don't build anything for a week because it takes a week to do that shit. It's cheaper just to keep buying the new shit and use it and not fuck with the end cuts. But it's your mindset. That's just I don't know, where was I going with
So
that.
you were talking about Mike bringing you.
So
little
Mike
rolls.
Desmuke was really started this, right? My cousin was going to Buds. Like he had a dive fares, which is a guarantee. You go to Buds, you fall out of Buds, you don't go to the normal Navy. You can still go kind of like EOD or
cool.
dive program, different things. I don't know that they still have it.
I always
SEALs.
thought that they just put you back on a ship. Like if you quit that or.
Well, they will,
Yeah.
but if you get dive farers, you get kind of some other shit.
Yeah.
So he was doing that. My cousin met this dude. He had some gear. I took it to it. It's a much longer story, but I took it to the gun show, had a couple things sitting on mannequins, and sold a lot of them. I'm like, okay, and they're like, I want to buy it. Can I just place an order? And I hadn't even thought of placing an order, but we came home with a bunch of orders and thousands of dollars. And I'm super excited. I'm like, hey man, I'm really good at selling this. So you just build this and I'll keep selling it. And he's like,
No.
he goes, you better slow down, Turbo. That's exactly what he said to me. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, I've got 8 of my 11 certification jumps done. He was getting all these parachutes that would come from Dermo, MT1Xs and double Xs and stuff. And they would Dermo them, they would just cut the straps. Well, Mike would get in them and rebuild them and everything. And they were, he had some deal where the smoke jumpers were going to buy these parachutes that he basically put back into operation. So, and then he had some container he was building, and for the FFA, Federal Aviation, FAA, I guess, it's under the same avionics as the airplane governing body.
Yeah.
So to do his experimental shit, you had to have like 11 jumps, and he had 8 or something done. So he was working towards this. He's like, I'm not going to do this. I'm like, well, what are we going to do then? He's like, well, you better learn to fucking sew, or you better refund the money. Well, I had plans for the money. Like I might have even been gone at that point.
It was probably gone.
2 hours later.
Yeah.
So I rented a sewing machine, and he gave me some in cuts, and the first thing I made that night was like a mini mag light pouch. The next thing I made was a knife sheath, which is terrible to make a knife sheath out of nylon. Eventually you're going to cut it, right? And it just kind of took off from there and ran out of thread. He came back, showed me how to put thread in it. Mom's like, you can sew, it's in your blood. I made all your dad's uniform. Well, my mom had a commercial home sewing machine, right?
Yeah.
Commercial machine's different.
Yeah, exactly.
The only thing that is different.
Bobbin doesn't go in the same. Nothing's the same.
Well, yes, but the pedal control is the only
Can
thing
you-
different.
When you put your bobbin into the machine, does it matter which way the thread's facing?
Yes.
How do you know which way it's supposed to go?
Well, you just know, like it.
Why? How do you
because-
know? I promise you, I'm with you. I'm with you. When I'm holding it, I want the thread pulled forward. I'm going to clip it in the machine. I promise you, if I go in there and tell everybody, get up from your sewing machines, half of it's going to be backwards and half of it's going to be forward. And I swear to God, if you put it in backwards, it won't sew the same.
Well, like my machine won't. It literally won't.
Maybe that's half the problem in there.
I mean, it very well could be.
But you have girls that'll come in that have been working in factories. They're like, no, our mechanics told us to put it the other way. So, I mean, who fucking knows?
While you're talking about the beginning of all of this, I think a lot of people would want to know how you came to a price for those pre-orders that first time. Because a lot of people who are starting businesses, they want to be the cheapest, so they'll get the business, but then
Okay, so
the perception
so
is
I had a price on those. I was told, here, take these to the show and sell them.
for that price. Okay.
Yeah, so that was the price, right? There wasn't a lot. There was Eagle out there. Blackhawk was kind of starting to come on the scene. And then London Bridge, but we didn't have a lot of exposure to London Bridge because we were West Coast SEAL stuff. Whereas London Bridge was really, and today it's changed a little, but London Bridge really was just a custom shop for Dev Group. That's what it really was there for.
Yeah.
So looking at Eagle had like the zip up vest, the TAC V1 and stuff like that. There were some LBVs, but you saw them in catalogs and shit, but the catalogs had no prices. You didn't know shit like
I
that.
have to call somebody.
And Eagle wouldn't touch anything custom back then. It was like $800 if you wanted something changed or switched around. At least that was my marketing. I don't know if I just said it enough that I believed it, but I think that was the case. But we felt like we had to cost. So Mike gave me, and it was an LBV, a belt. There was other shit with it for that price tag, and it was like $250 or something. Maybe it was $175. I think even it was $175.
Shit, the materials cost more than that now.
Now Mike's LBV was kind of like my CQB vest, but there was no internal pocket. You couldn't put neutral. You couldn't neutralize it with foam. The back panel was basically his platform that he had built was like the military issue LBV. He took that and just made it a lot better. Now, when we started building those vests, it was a complete different animal. And, but I felt like I had to compete. My competing with those other companies was that mine cost less.
Yeah.
And looking back, I really fucked myself. I lost out on a lot of money. If you're trying to come into the market and your advertising is, I cost less, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah, and that's like something that's hard for people to get over, and
yes.
Including myself. What opened up my eyes to it was you had a video telling the story about how the combat cock came around, and the guy who was building them wanted to sell them for
now talk
$15.
Yeah,
and you wanted them for like $25, and you were like, you just hate money if you're going to sell these for that cheap, you know?
Yeah, the hate money thing came from James saying that. Mm-hmm. A lot of things I didn't realize because I don't think people realize, like when we moved here, I had breakfast with James every single morning. I had lunch with him every single day, and I had dinner with him every single night for years. So he was like, oh, you hate money. I would just be sitting at a table and Horton would be talking, and he's like, you know what happens every time I raise my prices? James would say, and we'd look at him like, there's going to be some existential thing. And he's like, I make more money. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I like it. So
there's a balance that people
there is.
Need to find, and it's tough to find,
I think a lot of people, go ahead, say what you're going to say.
I was going to say, I think a lot of people are so focused on, I've got to get it started, so I'm going to come out cheapest, instead of, I have the best product.
Yeah.
And when you're starting, you probably don't have the best product, but there is a whole entire market. You could literally start a company trying to do what I do, and your marketing could be like, I don't like John Willis either, so you should buy mine. Like literally, you could pick up the scraps off the customers we fire.
Yeah, absolutely.
And more than live a better life than you're living, for sure. But when people are fighting that, somebody asked the other night, how do you price your stuff? How do you come up with a price? And this comes from Spearco. If you're comfortable with the price you're charging, you're not charging enough. Yeah. You should be uncomfortable with it. Wouldn't you rather sell everything you can sell for twice the amount of what you sell it for if you could still sell it all? Why would you not?
Exactly. So that's what I always tell people. Are you selling everything that you're making? And if so,
that's right. That's right. Do you, because the one factor in your business, especially when you're starting, it's you. It's your labor. How much time are you willing to spend doing, let's just say sewing, because that's what I do, right? Yeah. How much time are you willing to spend sitting on that sewing machine and not doing something else? And how long can you do that for before your wife leaves you? Yeah. Or your girlfriend is fucking some other dude while you're on the sewing machine, right?
Or it costs you more to build it in time than you're making.
That's right. A lot of people have no idea. They're literally out of business. They just don't realize they're out of business.
Yeah.
So you need to bring that money in, and it needs to be a lot of money. And if you can do that and live, like, I slept on the fucking floor in a shop for a long fucking time. Mm-hmm. I didn't go home because I was out of gas. Like literally there was no fuel in the Blazer when we rolled up to the shop the first time. I stayed there for 30 days. I did that a lot of times. Not because I had to later, but just because I'm in that mode. Yeah. And then I would go fuck around for a week, right? We'd go out and ride dirt bikes or do whatever. But it always came back. While I was riding dirt bikes, I was thinking about what I was going to make, right? When I was skiing, I was thinking about what I could make that had something to do with skiing. When we're diving and I'm underwater and my mouth is fucking cotton mouth, super dry, I'm like, man, I wish I had a Camelback carrier. We made one. It went on the side of my steel tank, and I could take my reg out. I could freshwater rinse my mouth, put my regulator back in. We built those. Like, that all came from that. Mm-hmm. So while I was out having fun, I was still always focused on building gear. When I was building gear then, I was working a job in order to be able to build gear, to buy materials and buy things. So I did that job for free for a long time. I used to tell people all the time, like, if you could give me one piece of business advice, what would it be? Love what you do, because if you love what you do, you're not going to work. I worked a number of different jobs, and all that free money, all that money that I made from my real work after paying my bills, it all went so that I could do the sewing stuff. Yep. So, but I lost out on a lot of money because I was not charging enough money, because at the end of the day, it's about capacity. If you have capacity, how many of these things can you build? And if the answer is 100 and you sell all 100 at $100, what would happen if you sold them at $200? Mm-hmm. Now, your clients might be different, but you're still going to have the demand for them. Yeah. We were quoting, like, people are always like, now I'm always baffled when guys are like, your website said 6 to 8 weeks and it's been 10 weeks. My website hasn't said 6 to 8 weeks since 1992, 93, like whenever the fuck we had our first website. Yeah. You can look it up, Wayback Machine. Mm-hmm. It's there. We've said 8 to 12 weeks for the entire time we've been here. And even when I reopened the shop out of Mom's garage, when I came home from prison, 8 to 12 weeks. Mm-hmm. So just charge, like Horton, right? I remember having these conversations when Jeremy came in the shop the first time. He worked at Palmer's. He came, which is a metal fabrication shop here in town. Came across the street. Oh man, I build knives and blah blah blah. I'm like,
man, I don't want to be a knife maker.
And he's like, and we're having this conversation, and I'm like, man, I blew Strider up. And Josh would be like, what are you talking about? When Mick was in federal prison, Dwayne was in Bosnia. We had some of those knives. We were cutting the legs off of tables. We were cutting anchor chains. So much so, we did so much damage that all the West Coast gun shows added a whole nother page into their rules and regulations about what you weren't allowed to do, because that was us doing it. And that's what we were, taking those knives and doing all this damage and cutting legs off of tables and shit and literally throwing them into concrete. I can take you to the Del Mar Fairgrounds right now and show you holes in the concrete. This fucking 2-inch divots and shit from us doing it so much. And guys are like, why are these knives $275? Somebody just heard that and they're like, fuck, I'll take 1,000 of them at $275. So guys are like, why are these $275? I go, because I can cut your knife in half. They're like, no, you can't. I'm like, let me see it. And we did. We cut all kinds. We just blade to blade and cut other dudes' knives in half constantly.
Bet homeboy.
So that's the deal. So a lot of people knew when Dwayne came back from Bosnia, he had more work than they could possibly handle. Yeah. They just couldn't do it. So what was the answer, right? If you can only build 25 knives a month, I don't even know what they were doing then. I'm guessing that's what it was. It was just me and Dwayne in the shop for a long time before Mick got home. So what would have happened if he'd have just said $500? They'd have bought them, because they were buying them at $275 and selling them for $5. That is the Strider dealer market right now. That's our dealer market. We would give our dealers, to be a dealer in the United States, you had to place a $1,200 opening order. To be a dealer overseas, you had to buy $5,000. And it couldn't be one of this, one of that. It had to be quantities of stuff. Yeah. So, and then we'd give you a 30% margin. We were doing 30% because that's what a lot of other companies were doing. Then Blackhawk jumped on the scene, and, because they were Mexico manufacturing first, then Vietnam. So to do that and really make profit with moving the containers and stuff, you had to do thousands of pieces of stuff. So of course they had to dump it out. So they were doing 40% margins, 60% margins on stuff. But it would fail. But their warranty is a way of life. Their whole fucking, advertising program, it was okay because most people don't use the gear to the point it rips and breaks. But the seals were tearing it up. I mean, you could literally just go up and look at a display at a show and rip it. It was single stitched. It was just, the quality control wasn't there. It was terrible. So what was I saying? Where was I going with this?
I don't know.
You need to listen.
Charging,
so the prices, right? Yeah. So what would have happened if Strider had just doubled the price on that shit? So our margins, we We had the dealer program was 30%. We turned all our shit off, do everything direct to consumer because we only have so much capacity. I can't build 600 micro rigs this week, right? And to keep our customers to where we're not sitting on, because we're direct to consumer. So we build 40 micro rigs, and we build 30 tool bags. So we're jumping product around so that I need my customer base to know when they see this, if I want it, I better come buy it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then we don't ever, if we do multicam black micro rigs this week, and then we're doing tool bags tomorrow, and we're doing hydro carriers the next day, when we do get back around to micro rigs, it's not going to be multicam black. It's going to be woodland, or it's going to be something different. We're always back and forth because it's about capacity.
And that's also kind of why automation wouldn't work, because you can't switch quickly like that.
People asking that question, they're not in that industry.
Yeah.
They're not even mostly in an industry where they automate things like that. Automation, like what's your idea of automation, right? Mm-hmm. Why are people to automate stuff? When I hear automation, I think like programs that will run the laser machine, right? So we're going to laser cut shit. Yeah. So if we're going to laser cut material, why do we laser cut stuff? Most laser cut material has to run out. It's made out of laminate. So it's two pieces of material back to back that is flame laminated. The truth is that material's way fucking heavier than the 500 that we're running right now. It's much heavier. What's the benefit to it? Well, you don't have to have skilled labor cut it out. You don't have to trace it. You don't have to cut it. We trace and cut all of our shit. But then when you sew it, you don't have to have skill. You don't have to put that webbing and get it level and space it 1.5 inches. You don't have to mark it. You don't have to be able to sew that without shift. If you look at people sewing pals on, it always travels, right? It's wavy, or it moves downhill as you go to the left or wherever you start from. You don't, with the laser cut, we just burn slots in the material. It works for some stuff, but you don't have to have skill anymore. If you look at these guys with the laser cut machines and most of their gear, there's only 6 pieces. We were looking at a bunch the other day online. There's only 6 pieces of stitching on the entire chest rig on a lot of this stuff. It's neat. Looks cool. Yeah. It's not going to last long term. It's not.
And if you were using a laser cutter to cut pals out, you would need to do 10,000 units to make that cutter.
Depends on this. You're going to see a laser cutter here.
Yeah.
You're going to see a laser cutter very soon. Why? Because I think it looks badass when you do that pals. You put red fucking Velcro behind the multicam black. That's literally why I'm buying it, because it looks fucking cool. It's not a better product. Some places it won't matter.
Could you do it with elastic? So like with the covert rig, could you add something to that because it's laser cut and not, or like once you mess with the integrity of that elastic, it's over.
So elastic, if you scissor cut elastic, there's fibers of rubber that run through it. When we burn it, no, you couldn't.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah,
I
you
know
couldn't.
That if you cut it, you could just rip it like anything. But if you're burning it, maybe. But I guess
so. We do burn it. We cut it on hot knives. It's a horrible smell when you. It
smells like burning rubber.
Yeah.
But we take it and I conceal it all, right? So if I have raw edges, which we do on the covert rig, I sew the Velcro so it's concealed 3/4 inch in. And then we sew it on the edge, and we sew it, on both where the edge of the elastic is and also where the edge of the overlap of the Velcro is. So it's never going to come off of there. It's not going to fail. But no, you couldn't. I don't think we could laser cut like in the middle of it. If we laser cut it, no, it'd be a failure point.
Because like having something like that is cool, but if you could find a function for it, the laser cutter.
So if we wanted to put like MOLLE slots on the front of it, there's companies doing that. I've seen. We would laser cut the Cordura and then sew it right there. So there's a lot of ways to make those mag pouches. Yeah. There's guys making mag pouches completely out of elastic. And then there's guys taking the elastic and basically they're flat pockets, so it's just a slot and you put your mag
Yeah.
in, like ours is. There's other companies making it so it's actually Cordura on the back, elastic on the front, and then there's companies that are sewing Cordura in the middle of that piece of elastic that's bowed out, so you only have an inch of elastic, but you lose a ton of the elasticity. So
Yeah, like if you want a mag pouch that's elastic, I'm assuming it's for retention, and that
Yeah.
doesn't last.
correct.
You know,
It's going to outlast what most dudes are going to do with it.
yeah,
I mean, you're not going to take it to 10 tactical response classes, but what's the rig for? I mean,
Yeah.
what is it for? It's for driving. It's for before the gunfight. It's what that rig's for. If you put on one of my micro rigs and drove 90 minutes to your nearest big city and got out at the gas station with your micro rig on and went in and a couple times stopped, took a piss, and then went to dinner, could you do that with a micro rig on? No. Somebody's going to show up and want to have some questions about why you're wearing that, right? Could you do it with a covert rig? You absolutely could. You absolutely could. Nobody would even fucking blink. Nobody would see it.
and even if you had it on the outside of your clothes, it doesn't look tactical. It looks like some sort of suspender system.
But even if you just
almost looks like a back brace.
That's exactly what people think.
Yeah.
But if you had that thing on and you got stopped by law enforcement for speeding, the cop's not even going to question it.
Yeah.
They're not going to see it. Not going to think twice about it. And that's what that rig's for. So
I just wanted to add a point to the people that have influenced you in a positive manner. The big thing with influencers is everybody has a story. Everybody has had bad things happen to them. The people who are successful are the ones that just didn't quit. They just didn't give up. They were just not defeated. They just every day got up and kept going on their path, whether they had to change their path or not. They just kept going. They just didn't quit. Quitting was never the option. Plan B was never the option. It was always just, I'm just going to keep going. And that's why those people have millions and millions of dollars and, a billion followers and
billions of dollars.
Billions.
There were more billionaires at Rob's last event than there were millionaires presenting. Cool. Now, with that said, what she just said, ups and downs. There's not a dude out there on stage telling you how to do some shit that hasn't had a bunch of terrible shit happen. Other than maybe fucking, I don't know, Grant Cardone's whole story and Vanderchuck. I don't think he had any terrible shit. The dudes I know, the dudes we're talking about, everybody she just mentioned, they've all had terrible shit. Even Tony Robbins was fucking down on his luck. Fucking E.T., C.T. Fletcher, E.T., Eric Thomas, all them dudes living in a dumpster. Literally, like, they have all been down to the point where weak motherfuckers today would literally kill themselves. There's people right now mourning and crying over their hard times and haven't even had a fucking hard time, right?
I mean, you look, you've got kids who are committing suicide
you have adults.
Because the internet is turned off.
Yeah.
You have adults doing it.
We're not even talking about you have $5 to last you for a week and you have to sleep on the floor somewhere. I mean,
Andy and I always laugh about these two money guys that I used to watch. And they always talk about their struggle. And one of them, like the perfect example of how bad he had it, was his family normally goes to Hawaii for 2 weeks every year, and he could only afford to go for 1 week. And the other guy was like, oh yeah, we grew up so poor that one time on our way to Disneyland, Disney World, my dad was so happy that we found $1 a gallon gas. Like, wait a minute, you were on your way to Disney World?
Is that like their shtick or is that real?
No, that was them thinking that they struggled.
Right,
you know?
right.
And it's like, you are in a different world than I am.
Yeah, absolutely. Come talk to me when you're sharing meals with your children because you can't buy all of it.
Or you're feeding your children instead of yourselves.
Yeah, I mean, paying with change. We used to have to pay our electric bill with change.
Yeah.
Stuff like that,
Yep.
you know?
Yep. Absolutely. So that's the thing, man. It's just, and you could have 10 people that literally get on stage and read a script, but you're going to relate with one. You're going to hear it better, right? You're just going to like their presentation better. It's just what you're ready to receive. That's really what it comes down to. But just listen to these guys, and when you start listening to these guys, other people will pop up through the algorithm. And as when you start reading, when you start interacting and consuming the content, it will seem very far away from you. But if you have money to pay, you can go and stand in the same room. And when you start doing better and better shit in your life, you will soon find that you yourself will be invited to be on those stages with those guys. Now, just listen to what I just said and watch what's happening, right? You can be there. You just have to do the things it takes to get there. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that takes having better friends and removing shitty. You don't even have to remove them. Just stop giving them access to you, and you will be amazed at what happens in your life. Amy Lynn Jones, happy Thanksgiving. I don't know if you will answer this question. Of course I'll answer your question, but it doesn't hurt to ask. Where do you get your music for your videos? We make it. So Epidemic Sound, if you're looking for music, you can use royalty-free music, and Epidemic Sound is the account we use. It's good. It's really good. You want rap? Rap's there. You want little pieces of music? They're short pieces. You need any sound effects? It's all there. You want rain? You want thunderstorm? You want dog bark, doors closing, gates slamming, car doors, sitting down in the car? All of it. Everything you could think of is there. Music's there. You want just little pieces? It's there too. When you pick the song you like, the genre, and you find the artist you like, you can look at his whole catalog, her whole catalog. You can find what's recommended. You could take just the acoustics out of there. What's that called? Vines or stems. You can pull just the piece of music. You can pull just the bass. It's great. We use it. But lately we've wanted our own music. So we've had Testimony did a song for us. We have two more. One more's almost done. There's a third one coming. David Ray, Eye for an Eye, and Eye for an Eye guys, they did a song for us, Tools to Survive. We've got a couple other artists that are starting to do some work for us so that we just have our own music. But I think what you were really talking about was Epidemic, and that's what most of the big boys use. If you look at Peter McKinnon, if you don't know who that is, I don't even need to tell you what it's about. I don't care what your interests are. You can't watch a Peter McKinnon video and go, holy shit, that was an awesome video. It's entertaining. Check out Peter McKinnon. He's even using Epidemic Sound.
A perfect example that's just in my head right now is the music video that was released on Thanksgiving. Your car did not make that sound. I got that sound from Epidemic Sound. Because the camera was too far away, it wasn't mic'd right, but I wanted it to be clear, a clear, crisp
right.
sound.
So that car is ridiculously loud. Mm. The Cayman, it's got aftermarket exhaust on it. We were driving.
You don't say.
We were driving. We were in Nashville doing something, and something came flying past us. I go, holy shit, that sounded good. What was that? And she's like, it's one of those Thunderbirds. I'm like, Thunderbird? I go, you mean Camaro? She goes, yeah, Camaro, right?
Like an old lady
so it's a Camaro with some exhaust. I'm like, holy shit. I go, is my car that loud? She's like, your car's like 4 times louder than
so
that.
Much different. So much different.
Yeah.
But so if you want to see Epidemic Sound, first of all, the vlog music comes from there for sure. But things that you can do, there's a little, it sounds like a car is driving around the shop. But that audio was recorded terribly 20 or 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So the audio that you're hearing just came from Epidemic Sound.
Yeah, and the car was going much faster than it looked in that video too. You're always surprised. Like when you're in the air jumping, it always seems higher than it looks on the camera, and a lot of it has to do with just angles also. But Epidemic's definitely what we use. You can type it into YouTube, see some reviews and stuff from them. I don't know what it costs. It's well worth it. It's well worth it. I think they have probably some trial thing you can also use. There's a lot of other companies out there doing it, and their whole comparison is, this is why you should use us instead of Epidemic. When all the competition is saying the other dude's name, don't fuck around with the other stuff. Just get Epidemic. What are they? I know you have personalized music, but you had to start somewhere. I've continually had issues adding music to my videos, issues with music drowning out my voice, issues with so drowning out your voice. Austin's going to tell you one thing. Brandel will tell you the same thing. Austin probably tells you. I use Premiere. I'm just not a fucking Mac guy. So they're using Final Cut. But you can, when you look at your tracks, and it depends on the software you're using, right? So if you use the rawest form of Premiere, I don't even know what it's called now, but you only have one track. You have audio and video. When I'm doing Premiere, I use the higher end Premiere. I've got 16 tracks here, right? So I can move in and pin and move the volume up or down. And then my voice track is going to be with the video track, and then my additional audio is going to be down here. So I can have it fade in, fade out. I can do a lot of things. You're probably limited by the program you're currently using, but it comes down to whether you're a Windows person or a Macintosh person, right?
Yeah, and the theory is all the same. You just have to know how to do it with your computer, and it really is.
You're really fast at video. Like, you're fast at video even compared to Brandel doing video.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I do all the time, so I get a lot of practice at it. But the theory just is if it's too loud, turn it down at that point, or turn the speaking up. But the problem with turning the speaking up is you get the atmospheric sound. I have that problem with Cody and Amanda a lot because they talk quiet. So when they're talking to John, if I turn up their voice, then you hear like crickets and like everything else just got really loud just to hear what they say. So you have a little bit of problem with that, but it's basically just turn it down.
Right.
You know?
So she says CapCut is easy and intuitive to use, but has copyrighted restrictions on their music. So I know we've talked about this since you asked this question, but I didn't know you could use CapCut on a computer, like as a program, right? So CapCut really is just for doing stuff on your phone. I have Adobe Premiere on my phone. I have a program from GoPro on my phone. There's a ton of shit. I actually have probably 15 different video softwares on my phone. And if I was going to sit down and make a cool video, I would probably use 3 or 4 of those programs before the video is final. So our video that you see on YouTube, that comes out of computers. The video we put up short form, if you see something through the week and stuff, that's usually me. And I don't really edit a lot of it. I cut stuff out just to kind of fit the music I want to use. If I have some video I want to put up, it's almost always I start with the music. But I don't know about using CapCut on a computer. So it's noon. You want to go eat?
It's noon. That's what I was going to say.
All right, we'll break for lunch, and then we'll come back here.
Break.
Trying to tear us down, tear us down.